Hey everyone, welcome to another collection showcase. So this is actually going to be a bit of a customs / collection showcase because some of these TARDISes are customs, but the majority of them I think do tend to be the actual releases. So I kind of count this more as a TARDIS collection rather than a set of TARDIS customs, but let's start on with the first one. So this first one of course is the First Doctor's TARDIS. And this is actually a custom version. I've raised the roof up and just made it look a bit more like the proper First Doctor TARDIS. Obviously there's still no interior card or anything. And I broke the spring on the door, so the door doesn't quite close properly anymore, unfortunately. I can't get the doors to close now, but anyway. So I gave this a repaint and then put the weathering back on and obviously raised up the roof. So that is the First Doctor's TARDIS. Next up we have the Second Doctor's TARDIS. This started out as a Seventh Doctor TARDIS. Oh no, was this a first? I think this might have actually been a First Doctor TARDIS. I correct myself. This actually started out life as a First Doctor TARDIS, and then obviously this has just been repainted. I trimmed down the top of the roof and made it more flat, repainted it a lighter blue, and then gave it a heavy coat of weathering. Just again, there's no interior card or anything. Although on this one the door does still work. I just wanted something that was a bit different, and obviously it's the Fourth Doctor TARDIS is more akin to the second one, but they are notoriously hard to get hold of. However, next in my collection I do have, this is the official release Fourth Doctor TARDIS. I did not buy this when they first came out. I actually had to trawl eBay for many months to try and find this, and well, I'm not prepared to say how much I paid for it. I paid for it with the, it was boxed, it wasn't separate, and I did have the figure with it. I've still got the box and everything. I feel like the price I paid for it, whilst quite a lot, was worth it. But these are very rare now. It's a very nice piece to have in the collection. Next up we have the 5th to 7th Doctor TARDIS. This is again just the standard release one that comes with the 7th Doctor. It was just a nice piece to have. It's a nice classic TARDIS design. It's probably what I would call the definitive classic TARDIS design. Obviously the TARDIS has gone through a lot of different designs over the years, but this is the one that most people probably would recognise from the classic series. These are still fairly easily available, I would have said, and it's always a nice one to have. But this forms the basis for my next TARDIS, which is another custom, and it is here the movie / Dark Eyes TARDIS. Now, obviously, in the movie, the TARDIS appeared as a much darker blue, which is what I've gone for here, that I've repainted. But then I decided that what I would do, to go with my Dark Eyes 8th Doctor as well, I figured that he would have the same TARDIS, but it would be slightly battered, so I decided to give it a bit of weathering, just to give it a bit more depth, and I'm pretty pleased with how it's turned out. And again, it's a nice TARDIS to have. If I just put it next to the comparison, to compare it to the 7th Doctor, I'm still going to always refer to this as the 7th Doctor TARDIS that it was made from. You can see that design is obviously basically the same. It's just a nice different colour. It's a great custom to do if you've got one of these spare and you don't mind painting up and everything. It's a really nice thing to have as another colour. Next up we have, this is slightly bigger, but this is my War Doctor TARDIS. So this was made from the Flight Control TARDIS, and this does have the door doesn't, I think I broke the spring on that door, but it does have the War Doctor's console in there. That's just a printed off card, but obviously, as I said, this started out life as a standard Flight Control 10th Doctor TARDIS that I've just simply weathered. Originally, I gave it a very, very light coat of weathering, and it looked really good, and then I made the mistake, when it comes to customs, of adding more. and unfortunately less is always more. So I added more to it, and I really didn't like it. So I then went over it again, basically painting this entire bottom half and areas of it black, just to give it more of a scorched look. And then I painted up the windows as well, and it looks so much better than it did. It actually looks better than it did when I originally did it. So I'm really pleased with that. And it's come out really well. Again, if you've got a spare flight control 10th Doctor TARDIS, it's a great one to do. So if you've got one spare, give it a go. Next up, we have standard release 10th Doctor, 9th and 10th Doctor flight control TARDIS. Obviously, this has the interior as well. You can't really see it, it's a bit dark. So, yeah, as I said, this is just the standard release. Nothing really special about this one. I haven't given it any extra weathering or anything. It's just factory fresh as is. Next up, we have the 11th Doctor's TARDIS. Now, this is a standard release with a slight custom change in that I've painted the windows a slightly darker grey. But that is the only change I've made on this. Other than that, this is the standard 11th Doctor TARDIS with insert card, obviously. Again, a nice one to have in the collection. And again, I feel if you just make these little additions to the windows, it does really lift it very much. Next up, we have this, and this is my 12th Doctor TARDIS. Now, at the moment, this doesn't have an updated interior card. This still has the 11th Doctor's TARDIS interior. But basically, all I've done for this is simply just repaint it a lighter blue and repainted the windows. Obviously, with the upcoming 5-inch release 12th Doctor TARDIS, this is obviously going to be made slightly redundant, but I'm still going to have it in my collection. But obviously I will be getting the official release, but that is, another nice one to have, and it just makes a nice, another nice addition and a nice custom to the collection to make. Now, I do have a further 2 customs, which I will show you now, which I don't really form part of my main TARDIS collection. Well, one of them does, but it is what basically just part of my TARDIS collection, so I thought I'd show them to you. Okay, so first up, obviously, you probably will have seen this on my channel. It is my original TARDIS Custom. This is still the Mark 1. I still haven't really done much to the Mark 2, which is why this one looks a little rough. But I wanted a TARDIS as it looks originally when it left Gallifrey, and I'm pretty pleased with how this turned out. As I said, it is very rough around the edges, so I am currently working on a Mark 2 to get this done. But it's a nice piece to have in the collection as a custom, and I personally think this would be a great release to actually be seen for real. You wouldn't even need an interior card or anything. You just have the door that slides across, maybe spring loaded, and it'd be a brilliant one to release, and I think it would sell really well. Now, finally, we have this TARDIS Custom. Now, it's a bit of an odd one, this, because some of you will be looking at it thinking, well, it looks a bit like the First Doctor's TARDIS, and if I get the First Doctor's TARDIS, it does indeed look like it in design, but as you will see, it is much bigger. Now, the reason for this being is because this TARDIS actually started out life as this TARDIS. It is actually one of the 11th Doctor flight control TARDISes. Now, this one is the TARDIS as imagined for my audio series. This is the TARDIS that my Doctor will be flying around in, and I really liked the design, the tool design of the First Doctor's TARDIS, but I only had an 11th Doctor's TARDIS spare, and originally I basically used the First Doctor's TARDIS as a base design. The 11th Doctor's TARDIS was one of the Christmas adventure ones from Christmas Carol, so it had the white windows rather than the black ones. So it was very similar to the classic First Doctor TARDIS in that respect. So I added some weathering originally all over to make it look a bit grimy, but it's something about it just still didn't look quite right to me, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So I decided to give it an all-over repaint to give it a much sort of slightly lighter blue, and then I weathered it around the bottom as well, and gave it a slightly darker weather with a lighter grey fleck, and it looked better, but it just still didn't look quite right. So then I hit upon the idea of thinking, well, I did it for my first Doctor TARDIS, why don't I rebuild the roof? Because I really like the design, and I really kind of like, and I'd like to have an updated, similar but different design, if you see what I mean. So that's where I hit on the idea of redesigning the roof, and that's what I did, and it came out really well. Obviously at the moment there is no interior card in here. I did previously have a bit of interior card in there for the 11th Doctor's TARDIS, but I took it out because obviously it wouldn't fit with what I wanted to do. But you know, this was again just a really simple repaint and just a redesign of the roof, and I was really pleased with the outcome of it. You know, and it's just something nice to have as part of my collection of my own Doctor Who figures for my audio series. I do have a collection of Master TARDISes, but these are obviously all the official releases that you've seen: the computer bank, the Melkor, the clock, and the column. There's nothing new there, but I wanted to show you my collection of the Doctor's TARDISes. So that was this video. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, like, favourite, subscribe, share. It really helps me out a lot, and I shall see you all with another video very soon.